So I think people are needing to think about what are the skill sets they're bringing and what part of the user journey do they apply to. Because a marketer, I mean, that just covers so many bases now.
This is Salesforce Ben Insider, the podcast that brings you all the top Salesforce news, insights, and trends, completely unfiltered. Join me, Ben McCarthy, and some great special guests as we dive into the Salesforce discussions you won't hear anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to the Salesforce Ben Insider podcast, the podcast that discusses news, trends, and generally topics that you won't hear about anywhere else. I'll be your host today, Lucy Mazalon. I'm a co-founder at Salesforce Ben, and I'm joined here with Sarah Kelleher. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you, Lucy.
What we're going to do with this podcast, this episode, is look back on a webinar that you did earlier this year, talking about trends in the Salesforce marketing space in 2024. So, back then, you were the customer success director, and now I hear you've got a different role.
Yeah, so I'm now the CEO at Nebula Consulting. Mm-hmm. We're a Salesforce consulting partner based in the UK, and I moved into the CEO role in the middle of June this year.
Yeah, congratulations. It's been a really big year for you.
Yeah, a really big year.
Great. And so you've been working with account engagement, formerly known as Pardot, for quite some time. 10 years, right?
Yeah. So I joined, became a Pardot consultant as it was then in 2014. I'd been an end user of marketing automation, so other tools, non-Salesforce tools and Salesforce tools for my marketing career. But I moved into consultancy in the world of Pardot in 2014.
Yeah, well, that's always good having that background as well in other tools, just so you can really see beyond just Salesforce tools, even if they're client is a Salesforce shop, you still know what the strengths and weaknesses are of different tools. So that's really, really good background to have. And so having been promoted, do you still feel like you're hands-on with the technology, or do you feel like that's getting less?
In some ways, this year, I've actually been more hands-on than I had in the previous couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that is down to the reasons that we made some structural changes at our business and changes at Salesforce. So when I stepped into the CEO role, we also restructured some of our consulting teams to align with some of the changes that Salesforce are making. And there's been so many big product announcements, re-platforming, all in areas that I really focus on. That I've been talking to my customers a lot more about the real ins and outs of the tool, more so than I have in previous years.
So what's an example of the restructuring that you did?
So the example, the main example of what we did was we actually sort of brought together our consulting teams. We previously had them quite product aligned into different Salesforce products. And people certainly still have specific skills and specialist areas, but we've combined that into one consulting team with people being more focused on either the technical side or the functional side of consulting. And I think with so two of our big specialist areas are, as you know, marketing and also CPQ. And with both of those being re-platformed onto core, we just knew we had to really break down any silos and get people working right across the platform. And it's been a really positive move for the team. We've got much more cross-functional skill now, and I think it helps us to build better teams for our customers as well.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the CPQ aspect of it as well, because that's a product that's changing all the time. And some people were saying, I was just reading an article the other day, is CPQ dead? And it's like, well, no, it's just changing a lot, right? But anyway, let's get back onto marketing.
It's actually a really similar story, and you can almost apply the exact same conversation to what's happening in that kind of revenue management world with the marketing automation world.
Yes, totally.
Really similar.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked you that question about staying hands-on with the technology is because the general thought is that as you get more senior, you kind of step away from the technology. But I heard you've been doing a lot with Marketing Cloud growth, especially this year. So let's get onto that. So you mentioned at the start of the year that there's new functionality that you predict for this year, using it to bridge gaps in that may have previously existed. and join the dots. So new functionality, we just mentioned Marketing Cloud growth. That's obviously been a big one for you. Anything else that comes to mind, and we can, just go through them one by one?
Yeah, so I think the big new, there have been so many announcements this year, and we'll get onto the A word later, I'm sure. But, Data Cloud isn't new for this year, but what is new is bringing so much of the existing Salesforce stack onto Data Cloud and actually being able to leverage one unified data space, as it were, to coordinate all the different business functions. And I think that's been a real game changer in terms of thinking about one business objective, one way of, one set of tools for doing things, but applying it to different business functions. And obviously we can't ignore AI and more recently Agentforce as well. Salesforce have positioned it, primarily, or not primarily, but firstly to some of the more obvious use cases around service and sales. But I think there are some things coming across all business functions that are just going to change the way that businesses interact with their data. And I think that's key. It's not, yes, people's jobs will change, yes, structures might change, but I think it's really about how your sales user or your marketing user is interacting with your data that's going to really change.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you mean by, joining the dots, connecting the dots between those functions. With Data Cloud, I feel like this year it's gone from being something very conceptual. You see those slides at Salesforce events and you're like, I don't really get it, but now it's a lot more tangible, right? And I think the number of people upskilling on Data Cloud as well has made that, a lot more, I don't want to say legit, but you know what I mean? Like a lot more consultants can talk to Data Cloud, talk to clients about Data Cloud. Have you done much with Data Cloud this year at Nebula?
Yeah, we have, and we've invested quite a lot in getting people skilled up in the traditional ways, your learning, your certs, your trailhead, all that kind of stuff. But also in that conversation, like you said, I think a lot of what's really key about Data Cloud is not just knowing the how it works in the background, but being able to articulate that to customers. Because one of the things that we've noticed with the people we work with is, like I said, Data Cloud can be very conceptual and customers don't know that they need that. No one's going out to, well, some people are, but very few are going out going, I need Data Cloud, I need a Data Cloud. They have a business problem and the answer is Data Cloud. Yeah. So we're really focused on how do we answer the questions rather than how do we just fit the nuts and bolts together. And I've seen a bit of a shift recently in the way that people are talking about it as well. I think when Data Cloud was first reimagined, as it was, it still very much was a competitor in the CDP space. But now I think because it underpins so much of the rest of the platform, it is now people are able to talk about it as the means to the end, and not necessarily as this big whole thing you have to implement on its own, but that it's part of all the other business functions that will be using it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a key point because it underpins so much. And we were told that. We were like, but now it really is such a prerequisite for all the new functionality coming out as well. And we mentioned before Marketing Cloud growth and advanced editions. What are your thoughts on that?
I think overall, Marketing Cloud and growth and Marketing Cloud Advanced, I think they are a really good move. And I know there has been, they were announced, Marketing Cloud Growth was only announced officially in February of this year. So that's really not a long time for a product to be around.
Gosh, yeah, that seems like yesterday.
I know.
It's actually quite a few months ago.
And I know there's a lot of pushback on what it actually can do, but I think what's more important is to look at the big picture of why Salesforce have made this move. And that's one of the things I've been talking to a lot of people about, especially a lot of people who have concerns about it, in terms of there are some feature limitations right now, but that's to be expected. It's a brand new product, and the incumbent products, you've got Marketing Cloud Engagement was Exact Target. Marketing Cloud Account Engagement was Pardot. They've been around for nearly 20 years. Of course, they're going to have more functionality. But what I think is really important about Growth and Advanced Edition is the fact that they are being rebuilt in the way that marketing should be done in 2025 and beyond, because trying to retrofit some of the huge changes that have happened in technology, for example, AI and the structure of data needed to take advantage of it, trying to retrofit that into two platforms that are so well established would have left gaps. And I think bringing it onto platform, taking advantage of Data Cloud, Flow, Experience Cloud, all of the things, the ingredients that Salesforce already has, is a really smart move. And actually, I think they are trying to make that transition period as easy as possible. And I know change is always hard. It is always hard, and there are always things to pick apart. But the rate at which the new products are being improved, the release and the roadmap that we've got for these editions is incredible. Even this year, the number of things that the gaps that have already been closed are really great. So I think the potential is huge for these.
And on the topic of AI, Agentforce came with a big bang. We've been trying our best at Salesforce Ben to like not pick it apart, but like get to the crux of what it is and what's available and things like that. And then before that, we had the Marketing Cloud Einstein feature sets. Where do you think AI has come for marketing, for marketers on Salesforce this year? Like, what are the highlights you think?
I think the only sort of out of the box in product generative AI tools are really, for marketing. The content creation in account engagement, that's GA, everyone's got it, everyone can use it. You don't need to go out and do anything different with that. And I think the fact that that's just there, it's available, it's making people's lives easier already is a huge step. I think where the agents will come into play in a marketing context, I think probably is something that needs a little bit more development, a little bit more thought as to the value of those use cases, because as I said earlier, there's some really obvious use cases for service and for sales. And for marketing, I think one of the really key use cases I see is going to be more around the analytics and improvement of campaigns and things like that. The content generation side of things has already helped marketers, and it's not that it's replacing marketers, but sitting in front of a blank page is way harder than sitting in front of a first draft that needs work. So I think that's where it's shown real benefit. And then once we get into the world where those agents or AI tools are going to be able to provide more proactive campaign insights and recommendations for, which channels are working, which audiences are responding at which time. And that's the holy grail for marketers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to the point, like, they've moved marketing functionality on the core infrastructure in order to reach into all the data that your organization has rather than pumping it through different connectors. So, And so any other use cases that you've seen that clients have brought to you?
I think there will be some marketing use cases. I think a lot of the kind of customer-facing agents in a more B2C environment. And I think from a marketing standpoint, there's possibly some use cases there for people being able to ask about, pricing and offers and things like that. From a B2B perspective, I think a lot of it is going to be around that sales and marketing alignment and, how do we know when a lead is ready to speak to sales? Are there any gaps in our funnel where the conversion rates aren't working properly, and what could we do to fix those? I think it's going to be around that real optimization and iterative improvements to marketing processes.
Absolutely, and building audience segments, like tiering accounts, things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just laughing to myself because if sales and marketing are at like loggerheads trying to like decide what to do, if the AI is telling them this is the best option, then, of course, AI can be challenged, but it gives a bit more of a direction, I feel, because a lot of it's not visible to the naked eye.
Yeah, I think it's really, I always laugh every year when we talk about the priorities for businesses every year. Sales and marketing alignment has come up every single year of the decade I've been working in with Salesforce. 10 years ago, there was a really good Pardot video that I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a little cartoon of a sales department and a marketing department actually having a fight. And then Pardot came and it was all happy. And we're still having the conversation about sales and marketing alignment.
Because technology is the silver bullet.
Exactly. But I think, we get closer and closer, and bringing all the functions onto the same platform has got to be a way to help that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the closest we've been for, years.
Yeah. And I know you specialise in B2B mostly, or Nebula does.
Yeah.
But I think some of the movement around commerce this year has been really interesting as well, especially going on core. Do you have any thoughts about commerce, or?
It's not my area of expertise, but I think the fact that Salesforce, again, bringing it onto platform, including it in things like Salesforce Foundations,
yes,
it tells you a little bit about what Salesforce are trying to do. They really are trying to create this, one platform, one set of capability, one set of underlying tools for automation, segmentation, user management that are then applied in different contexts. And there are some advanced commerce use cases. There are commerce specific tools out there for your, point of sale and your payments and things like that. But I think the fact that Salesforce are clearly spotting this as something for, businesses that have a regular use case for commerce to be able to just switch that on in their existing platform, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think making that easier without an integration, there's always always complex use cases that will require a bigger tool. But the fact that Salesforce are bringing it into what is effectively this is your starter kit of all the things you need Salesforce to do, I think tells you that it's going to be quite important for them.
Yeah. And it's for free.
Exactly.
It's like, you can't argue with that, even if you just want to play around with it.
Exactly.
What I really love as well about Marketing Cloud growth and Commerce Cloud this year, they've really thought about the user interface.
Yes.
It's a lot more friendlier. If you look at some of the legacy stuff in Marketing Cloud engagement, you can really see totally different user interface. So that should help adoption, right? Makes it a bit more sexier for clients to get to grips with.
And it was back then an exact target user in one of my previous roles. And then we have a couple of customers using engagement, and you log back in now and it is exactly the same. The user interface looks exactly the same. And I've, one of the selling points of account engagement has always been that it's easier for users than some of the more complex tools. But even that looks complicated compared to where we are with Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced Edition. And it, if people are in that Salesforce user interface anyway, it's a natural next step. It is much more intuitive than we've seen before.
Definitely much more guided.
Yeah.
Makes training easier.
Yes, definitely.
Well, just on that note then, with another thing you said at the start of the year was prioritization. So we've gone through a lot about what was coming up, and you made some really good predictions as well. You said loads of stuff coming for Data Cloud, AI, extensibility, and using the AI was another one. API, for building custom tools. So, but you said that you're going to have to make some conscious decisions about where you're going to focus your time and energy, because no one can be an expert in everything. So you obviously got a very skilled team to do that. How did you find that thought process when you actually got down to it, thinking about what and advising clients as well?
Yeah, I think it is. I was thinking about this yesterday, actually, around how the role of the marketer is changing, because, everyone's having to rethink what the business functions mean with the introduction of AI, with the introduction of new technology. And I think marketing is one of those, everyone thinks their own function is the most, fast moving and things like that. But I think for marketing, that really is the case, because you come from, an era, if we look decades back, of brand marketers, ad marketers, the kind of Mad Men style marketing where you spend a load of money on big campaigns and then, a year later you might see an uptick in numbers and all you've got is correlation.
Right.
Moving into, you fast forward to the introduction of digital marketing and you start to be able to get some stats back on how things are performing and people starting to specialize into brand or execution, into digital or other channels. And then even now, a digital marketer is too broad now. And so I think people really are having to specialize very much in, the type of marketing they want to do. And there's a spectrum from that very creative side of marketing and the marketing strategy side of things through to actually almost data engineering now. And that really does fall under the spectrum of marketing. And I think a digital marketer who previously would have been segmenting data, managing data, creating campaigns, writing copy, doing the strategy for their user journeys, things like that, all of those sort of things, they're now almost different roles. So I think people are needing to think about what are the skill sets they're bringing and what part of the user journey do they apply to. Because a marketer, that just covers so many bases now.
Yes, I agree. And I love that all you have is correlation, but now you can't hide behind that. It's correlation, causation, right?
Yeah.
This activity directly impacted the revenue in this way. And with the more sophisticated data models that Data Cloud has, and also they brought out opportunity influence, right?
Yes.
The new campaign.
Buying groups as well. I love that.
Yeah.
This is actually something I think is going to really change I think it's both a real challenge and an opportunity for marketers, because we don't just have the cost of acquiring a customer or your cost per click. We actually have now cost per interaction. As we're looking at more consumption-based pricing in these products, there is a cost per every email or SMS you send. There's a cost even for segmentation and activation. So putting people into, even grouping people, you can put an exact cost on every person in your database and everything that they have interacted with. And that is so much granularity and visibility that marketers are going to have to really think about, what is the value of this interaction? And that's so much pressure.
Really good point, because obviously Salesforce is moving towards usage-based pricing.
Yeah.
And this question I've asked so many people, like how does one control who uses what credits, right? If you've got Data Cloud and suddenly sales are consuming all the credits, it is a question like interrogating, like actually credits wise, what are we spending? I think that's going to continue to be a big topic of conversation in 2025.
Yeah, I think so.
So going back to the topic of prioritization, with your clients this year, have you had to tell anyone to kind of slow down, take things one at a time, or kind of educate people on dependencies to implement stuff? Because obviously Data Cloud is a prerequisite for Marketing Cloud growth, for example. I know.
One of the ways that we're really sort of talking to our customers about this prioritization is moving from a kind of feature-based prioritization to a use case-based prioritization. And when we're thinking about Data Cloud and AI, the word use cases, everyone knows that's kind of where you start, right? You have to build your use case. But I think that applies more generally and is a way of thinking that we're really advising customers to move to, because like you said, there are lots of prerequisites and dependencies. And so if you say, oh, right, well, in order to use the new marketing technology, we have to implement Data Cloud. And if we're going to implement Data Cloud across the whole business, that's this huge project that could be years. So actually thinking about it in terms of, well, let's not implement that whole platform and then implement the whole of Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced. Let's think about what we want to use it for. Think about which bit of the customer journey we're targeting. What's the business impact of that? How visible is that in the business? What's the cost? And actually thinking about it in terms of a use case, not just, right, today we're going to think about how we migrate our forms. we think about the part of the user journey.
Yes, yeah.
And that's been a really helpful conversation to have with a lot of people.
Yeah, because you just want to chip away at it and provide value at each stage. And that's probably a point that's been laboured over the years, like show value first before going full hog onto something.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Data Cloud, it doesn't have to be everything at once. You can tackle it, data model object by object, basically. Well, unless I'm mistaken.
No, I think, and the consumption-based pricing makes that sort of use case or pilot or POC or whatever you want to call it, it makes that model so much more attractive because you're only paying for what you're using. So if you do a smaller use case, you don't have to pay for, the whole enterprise implementation.
Yeah.
You can prove that value first.
Yeah. Otherwise, traditionally you could do an implementation and like have just stagnant like software, like SaaS software, basically. I can't remember what the term for it is, like sitting on the shelf. It's something to do with shelves, but yeah. Right. So have you had to say, okay, let's not do this all at once to any clients, or have they been like very much on board with this approach? And, I wanted it all done yesterday. Any of that that you've seen? No.
I mean, we get that all the time. Yeah, that's been happening for years. You get, people who come in and say, oh, I want to integrate this and I want to do that and I want to revamp our entire model. And then you go, okay, well, so tell us a bit more about your marketing process or your sales process that we're going to be building in this platform. And they go, oh, well, we don't really have that ironed out yet. We go, okay, right, we might need to just wind this back a little bit. And I think one of the really key reasons for that is not that the technology can't do it. We can kind of, realistically, with Salesforce, you can make it do most things. But it's the user adoption, it's the change management. And if you try and throw all of these things at a business at once, especially if they're, as well as doing the technical side, they're trying to think about their processes as well. It's so much change, and I think it's really hard for people to get on board. Absolutely. So we have that conversation a lot, like what's, the standard project management, what's your MVP, what's your must-haves, what's your nice-to-haves, and really working on people on what's going to show the best business impact.
Absolutely, and that's really good advice for, there's probably loads of marketers out there thinking, okay, how do I phrase this to someone in higher up in the leadership team? Like, how do I get the right amount of budget that I need? But I think it's actually more the other way, where leadership are pushing people into solution-based technology rather than taking. It's like, let's just implement AI, like, just shiny new toys. But no, that's really good advice that you've given there. Right, so analytics. Do you want to touch on anything to do with analytics? Because that was one of your key things for this year as well.
Yeah, and I think we started the year seeing a lot more questions around analytics, and that has not gone away. I think the driver for a lot of this is, there are lots of drivers for this, but there are a couple that are key. One is availability of data, and the fact that there just is more data around. I think a large part of it is the climate and the sort of economy and business performance at the moment. We've seen quite a few companies where there's been either changes at a management level or a board level, and the roles who are typically more looking at budgets, your CFOs, are actually taking more control of a lot of things, and they're asking more questions, and people are needing to justify the money that they're spending a lot more. So this is where some of the requests are coming from for analytics, is we need to be able to make a business case, we need to be able to justify this spend or show the impact of this spend. We need to be able to really hone in on where are our opportunities to improve our processes. And you can't do that if you can't see the performance of each of your parts of your process. So a lot of our customers who we've been working with for years on their sales and marketing, we're now doing a lot more analytics with them as well, because they want that insight. And also getting easier to get. Some of the AI built into things like Tableau is really impressive.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get some of our customers more on that, because that's going to be a game changer. You don't have to think about the report and the fields and the structure of the data tables to be able to see the chart that you want. You'll be able to just say, I need to be able to see this because my manager sent me an email, and it will send you back a visualization that makes sense. And that is going to be so powerful.
It even says, okay, well, this is what you were asking for, but actually, have you considered this?
That's amazing.
So highly recommend everyone to check it out. Can't remember what the exact post was called, but I wrote one following an interview with the CEO of Tableau. And just it makes Tableau a lot more approachable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that analytics trend is going away. People know the data is there. And that's one of the benefits of having something like Data Cloud and all your data on one platform, is that you have the visibility, but then you need to be able to extract that and visualize it.
Yeah, and that's another product that's being built, re-architected on core.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're also consolidating all of the analytics tools, because previously it was like, okay, we have Data Armor.
Yeah.
Then we have B2B marketing, B2B MA. So that'll be a good welcome change, I think.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
everybody just learns one tool rather than having to jump around places. All right. Well, I think we're coming to the end now. And I suppose anything that you predict for 2025? Can you believe we're halfway through this decade?
Oh my gosh, I hadn't really thought about it in that way. That's really scary.
I'm sorry, I retract it. Everything's fine.
I think the trends that we've seen at the beginning of this year are just going to sort of accelerate. If anything, data and AI aren't going away, and I think that the shift in AI from predictive to generative to now that agent-led AI is going to continue. And I think we are going to see more of a shift around the way that teams interact with their systems. So we just mentioned a really great example with analytics is people aren't going to necessarily have to go and build reports. They can ask the system to build that report. And I think it will be the same with some of the other functions. For example, your cases and your opportunities, you will then be talking with an agent who can go and make that change rather than you going in and editing all those fields. So I think there's going to be a shift in the way that people interact with their data, which is probably going to divide the functional and the technical roles even more. The people coordinating the back end of what the agent does with that is going to be much more intense. So I think that we'll see that coming. More scrutiny and data driven. I think those are things we're going to see more and more of. People having to create business cases, justify their spend. I don't see that going away anytime soon.
No. I'm just wondering what they're going to come up with, what Salesforce is going to come up with next year, the big announcements at Connections and those events. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for all your insights. And I think there are so many useful nuggets of information for people because, these times can be a little bit anxiety inducing, right? There's a lot of instability and I just love the idea about the analytics and the AI and how it's actually coming to fruition as well now. So, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I hope it's really useful. And I think there is a really good future ahead for a lot of the marketing tools and Salesforce in general. So,
fabulous.
Thank you.